Good evening from Vietnam. Good afternoon to you, Simon. Thanks a lot for being so kind to spend your afternoon joining my Inside Sharing show and share your amazing stories to our global audience. And now, on behalf of the listeners around the world, I want to say thank you.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for considering me as part of your guest. And I hope that the people that are watching us will learn something because otherwise it would be a total waste of time. So let me make sure that my story somehow rings some bells and some of the some elements in my life story and in my message uh, would strike a chord. This is only my hope. And if there is one person that sees us and for him or her it strikes a chord, I'm going to be very happy and I'm going to say, ha, like your name. Thank you.
Oh, like laughing, ha ha ha. See, I love connecting with the people with the big minds, and you are one of them. Want to change the world, right? Advocate to make a better world for the people, and you have a phenomenal story, career journey of happy and making great things for the people around you. So thank you for doing that. And now you have a new friend in Vietnam. So if you and your
Thank you. I'm so
family,
happy.
your children that decide to travel to this small little humble country, you have a new friend, new family here. You let us know, and then we will be so happy to take you and your family around our cities.
Thank you so much.
And for your little taste of Vietnam, all right, it's it's a great honor for our audience to have you to do a little introduction about who you are and the work that you are doing. Would you please do that for us?
When you ask me this kind of question, you take a risk. I'm a university professor, and if you give me the microphone free, I will never stop. But let me try and discipline myself. If you ask me to put a label, who am I? I would say I'm a curious person, and I'm an eternal student. It means that I don't know where I'm going to end up in my, I call it voyage, I call it travel in my curiosity. I never thought that I'll do and I'll be doing whatever I've been doing in the last 50 years of my life. And in my age right now, when I see some universities struggling to invite me, some large association wants to listen to me. I keep on writing books and the books have one thing in common. All my uh, last books, and they deal with the future, and namely, my angle is the future of work. So I can tell you only one thing. My why it started because I adore different culture. And when you adore different culture, you understand the world much better. What helps me a lot is the fact that for life circumstances, I speak about 7 languages. Some of
Mm.
them are languages that just with the two of them, I think you dominate maybe two-thirds of the world, English and Spanish. But I do speak some other languages as well. And many of my books have been translated to other languages in other culture. And normally, when I write a book in a different culture, when it gets translated, I offer a local person to be my co author because I don't want just translation, I want adaptation. So I want the adaptation with the cases. It's going to be so. This happened in China, and in China, I became very famous, not because I'm on radio, television, because my books are doing quite well, and they were published by very prestigious publisher. So in one sentence, I can tell you that I spent about the first part of my life. I was typical academic. I was I finished my PhD at the University of Minnesota in the US. Then I taught at some very famous US university like Boston University, University of Colorado, University of Minnesota. Then I moved to Montreal because I was invited to work with a guy that invented the word stress. And he was in Montreal. He invited me. I worked with him 2 or 3 years, and he studied stress in the context of he was a medical doctor in medicine. I was interested more in people and in work situation because my training is more in work psychology. Okay, so I work more with leaders, with organizations, but I understood that some phenomena you need to reach out and become multidisciplinary. So I work with Hans Selye. If you look at the name, he was nominated twice to get Nobel Prize. And in one of my books, I said how the big guru of stress died from the stress of being nominated but never received the Nobel Prize. So you can generate your own level of stress. So I spent about 22 winters in Montreal. In Canada, we don't count the years, we count only the winters. I survived 22 winters. Very early in my career, I became at the top of my academic profession. Those that listen to us, probably they know that within the university, you start as a junior professor, then you have associate professor, then you're full professor. So I was very ambitious and I published a lot. At the age of 40, I became full professor. And then I said, what else? And then I reached a conclusion that in the academia, we are committing one big fallacy. We're only communicating to our colleagues, to our peers. And if you want to be a change agent, that's not enough. So I took on myself to become what I called, I cannot even call it change agent. I call myself transformation agent. Because the big difference is that when you transform something, there is no going back. And the world that we live today is a world in transformation. Can you imagine not using, the intelligent phones, So even the inventors of the iPhone, for example, didn't know that one day they're going to invent it. And I can tell you about it because I have personal experience with Stephen Jobs, okay? Because I got to know him. And I have an interesting story in my life. Later on, maybe we'll talk about it. So my niche is the middle road, connecting the academic rigor of whatever I do, develop concept, develop to the real world. And the real world is the society of organization. We're still, industrial leaders, people that are leading us, etc., etc. Among them also government, government leaders. So this is my niche. And in this niche, as a transformation agent, I decided that if I need to have tools to change something, I need to have 3 legs. And those that listen to me, please take it very seriously, because even if you want to change yourself, you need to apply these 3 legs. Not only change others or societies, but even yourself. You need to have a concept. But the concept that you develop needs, when you talk about the concept, and I have a lot of passion, and you'll see throughout the interview that my passion speaks more than the content. I communicate my passion. So you need to have a concept, a theory, a model, something that when you talk about it, it sounds like a beautiful music to people that listen to it. Not to you, you're convinced already. You wrote articles, you wrote papers, you wrote books, but the people that listen, that you talk, you communicate the concept. But that's the first leg or the first essential element. It's not enough. You need to develop methodology of how do you apply the concept in real life. Because if you have a concept, you have no methodology, you cannot become an effective transformation agent. And the third thing that is missing are tools. So remember, if you have a concept, you have methodology, and you have tools, then you can become a effective transformation agent. So I've dedicated my last 30 years of my life to do that. It was hard to do it in the academia because the academic people don't appreciate when you write articles that are half facts and the other half are a little bit fiction. They're not novels, because when you talk about the future, nobody knows how the future would look like.
Yeah.
So I develop scenarios for people to dream, because when our dream normally are extension of our experience. But if you haven't experienced something, how can you dream about something that you've never experienced? So what I do, I surround myself with some excellent people that write with me, You know, I'm just finishing right now my 85th book, 85 books I wrote so far. It's a lot, you know. I know in different languages, as I said, you know. And I'm have a very ambitious plan because right now, simultaneously, I'm completing about 5 new books. Okay, so the books include the 3 legs, the 3 content: ideas, model, theory that has been rigorously, rigorously and academically verified, validated. So I don't. It's not something that I woke up one night and I said, "Wow." You know, give you an example. For about 60 years, I talk about values, but everyone talks about values. So if you don't have a model that you can talk about your universal value, what are the important values, how do you align them with your definition of success, you know, what is it, and how do you measure them? If you don't have all this, then it's become an exercise in futility. It doesn't help. So I consider myself to be a change agent. I don't do it alone. I created societies. I'm creating organizations that have the spirit and a life on themselves because I'm not involved in the day-to-day activities because I'm terrible manager. I'm not very good manager, you know. So I have other people that are doing by far better job. Okay. And then later on, I'll tell you how do I select my team, how do I select the people that I like to work with, because if I cannot learn from them, they're not going to be my team. I want to learn, you know. So they have to teach me, they have to be ethical. Obviously, we are not an NGO, so we're creating organizations that work in different parts of the world, but all of them are equipped with concepts, methodologies, and tools. So tools, yes, tools, tool or tools. So later on, you can ask me about it, and that's basically the way I look at myself. So I'm nothing in this universe. I'm a small grain. I'm nobody. I'm really nobody. But as long as I breathe, as long as my mind work, as long as I am I have the possibility to forge what I call synergy with other people, other associations, like what I'm doing right now. It's a synergy because you have a goal, you have a record, you manage to invite already about 600 world top leaders. So I'm going to be 601. So the synergy is like this, okay? And who knows what it will lead to, because we don't know, you don't know, I don't know. We don't know how many souls we're going to touch with this presentation. Hopefully, many of them. So
Yeah.
you asked me, and I try to give you kind of an overall view of who am I. Not
Wow.
easy.
Simon, thanks a lot for being so energetic to share your passion and the works that you are doing. That shows how committed you are for excellence and to become a transformative agent. Okay, like I made you say earlier, the transformation is important because when you transform, right, you're not going to go back into the previous one, and that is the beauty of the works that amazing people like you are doing. And and I believe that, you know, we want to change, right? We want to do something good, but there's a lot of reason why we couldn't do that. So I want to bring you back in time, okay? Back in time to figure out what makes you to do that. All right. And I think that it's good to start by childhood, you know, when we were young, very, very young. So when I was little, I wanted to become an astronaut. I really enjoy thinking of myself wearing the suit and jumping a different planet. It seems so cool. But life, Simon, didn't give me anything to do what I wanted to do. All right. It took me to a very different path. So for the little boy Simon all years ago, all right, what were his dream about himself in the future though?
Well, I think that uh, I think it's a combination of what I wanted to do, what I did, and there are a couple of factors that I call them serendipity. basically it's lack of being in the right place or meeting the right people, and then you're caught in the dynamics. So I grew up in a very I like to start with it, in a very resilient family. Why resilient family? Because I'm of Jewish origin, and my parents survived many years of Nazi concentration camp.
Wow.
My father was a medical doctor there, and the Nazis in the camp, they needed him as a medical doctor. And he also saved my mother. He claimed that she was a nurse. She knew nothing about nursing, but that's the way he saved her. Okay. Even he himself, he didn't finish medicine. He was in the fifth year. He knew enough, but he told them that he's medical doctor. And like this, he survived. And after the war, the Second World War, he immigrated to live in Israel. At that time, it was called even Palestine. Actually, today there is war, and I can tell you also that I hate wars, even though I had to be in a military. I hate uniform. I hate wars. It's really it makes me feel sick, because, and if you want, I can already say that in a war nobody wins. In a
Yeah.
war, someone is losing more and someone is losing less, but nobody wins. Okay, this is my way of looking at the way of settling conflict using power. In power, everyone is losing. Other ways, there is a possibility that everyone will win. Okay, so, and I live in Europe today. If you look at the history of Europe, there are hundreds of years of battles and battles and battles and war and battles and blood. And now we're talking about the European Union. Still, there are problems, but still, they're talking peace and they're talking about collaboration. They're talking about synergy. So I was born in Palestine or in Israel to parents that survived. I'm not sure if it's 5 or 6 years of concentration camp. They had to fight for bread. They had to fight for their life. Most of my family got exterminated in the gas chambers. And I'm telling you all this because many years later, the world today is not linear. So allow me from time to time to jump ahead and then to go back. That's the way I see, because the world today, it's like this. Because many years later, a very good friend of mine, the psychoanalyst, very well-known psychoanalyst, writes also a lot of books. And one day, I asked him, what makes me, at my age, still running and motivated and passionate and do more? I mean, why don't my children don't understand me, say, Dad, why don't you relax? I said, relax means what?
Uh-huh.
So for me, my work and my thought and what I'm doing that I'm explaining to you on, it's almost a therapy. But he said, using psychoanalytical tools, that unconsciously, everything that I'm doing, trying to contribute to this world, is to make it a better place so we have less war. No war, and less evil things that happens to people in this world. So I'm not, because this is a psychoanalytical perspective. So maybe, I said maybe. So I grew up in this family, resilient, never talk about it. And this is where my voyage into languages started, because in this family, my father was of German origin, my mother of Polish origin. At home, they spoke Polish and German. I learned Hebrew. I grew up in Palestine with a lot of Arab friends and surrounded. So I speak a little bit of Arabic. I did not practice it, but later on, I started to perfect it, because one of my associates years later is a guy from Morocco. So he doesn't speak Palestinian Arab, he speaks Moroccan Arab, but still, I'm very often there in Morocco. So my Arabic is, and then of course in Israel we spoke English. And when I speak about a language, it also helped me to develop sensitivity to the culture of, because when you speak a language, you can understand better jokes, you can understand better, customs, you can understand better. And actually, I have it almost as a rule when I'm invited to deliver a speech in Poland, even though today my Polish is not very brushed. But I start in Polish. And then I tell the people, and I even write myself a note. I never studied Polish, the alphabet. I know how to use it. I understand it because I learned it, from the street, as we say, from my parents. That's it. So, but I speak and I tell them I'm so happy to be here. If my mother would know that her son is delivering a speech in Poland, she would probably be very proud of me. And everyone, and what happened, this gets you some empathy. And then I tell them, sorry, the rest of my speech, I'll have to switch to English. But if you have questions to ask me, do it in Polish. I think I'll be able to answer. That's the way it is. So I went and I grew up, normal childhood, high school, everything else. I went because in Israel to the Israeli army, and I unfortunately was in a war. It's called the 6-Day War. This was in 1967. See, I'm old. I have white beard, maybe before even you're born. But there was a war. There are many wars there, but this is one of them. And I acted as paramedic. Fortunately, I didn't kill anyone. I just saved life. My father, that was a doctor later on, wanted me to study medicine. I was not admitted to the faculty of medicine. I guess my notes were not good enough at that time to be admitted. So my father said, what are we going to do? Why don't you try something else? So I tried something else in a new faculty. I liked it. And little by little, I went into business administration, into work psychology. And then I thought that I'm going to work, but a very talented professor at the university probably saw some of my talent. He said, no, you need to learn how to do research, and I'm going to help you become a PhD doctor. And he said, and I'm going to help you study in the US. So I went to Minnesota. And so I ended up learning, brushing my English. I went to Minnesota. I finished my PhD in the field of managing people. And then I had the first shock in my life that started to make me think about what is life about? What is the meaning of success? So it was, a step by step. And because I work in Minnesota, I don't know if you know, but in Minnesota, there is a very famous hospital. It's called the Mayo Clinic. And I work in the Mayo Clinic as a junior researcher. And I interviewed people that survived their first heart attack.
Oh.
We wanted to study those that didn't survive, but we don't have the technology yet, So we only, and in the Mayo Clinic, as a junior researcher, I worked for some other people, not for myself. And we only selected people that were active in working. They were in the workforce. And I asked these people that survived it, first heart attack, never had it before. They thought that they were in perfect health, and one day, puff. And I asked them, what do you think? And this is not science. I asked them question. What do you think was the reason for your condition? What shocked me was that 90% of those pointed out to something that connected with the world of work. So I reached a conclusion that maybe we talk about a new phenomena that has no color, no odor, but kills. And that's how I went to study the whole issue that today we call job dissatisfaction, we call it stress. It has different names, okay? But again, this was, and I've developed a very simple model where I look at success in life. Very simple, conceptual. At that time, I didn't have, remember, in I think it was 95, 96, or no, 97, sorry, 1976 or 1975, where I studied in Minnesota. So I started to look at issues of, I invite some of the people that watch it also to ask themselves, what is the meaning of success in your life or in your job? And then I reached a conclusion. My models 50 years ago all were 2-dimension. Today they're 3-dimension. I explain to you why later on, maybe if we get to talk about it. So look, if you look at personal life, your personal life, If you're healthy, you're successful. Health is number one. If you're unhealthy, it doesn't matter if it's physically or psychologically, you're not successful. At the organization, I've developed something called organizational health, which means if you're productive, you add value to the organization, you are helping the organization to become healthier because you're productive. And if you're unproductive, you're sick because you're not helping the organization to become healthy. And if you look at the 2x2, you can find out four possibilities, four configuration, right? Obviously, the win-win is when you like your work, you adore your work, you work hard, but you're healthy. It's almost like therapy, and you get money for it, what you do. This is a win-win. The lose-lose is that you don't like what you do, you have to do it for the rest of your life, and you become sick, and you die prematurely or develop all kind of disease. Today, I know a lot about it, right? But then you have the other combination, I call it the diagonal, which means that you're extremely productive for the organization. That's what happened to the almost 200 managers that I interview. But you end up developing prematurely ulcers, heart disease, cancer, blood pressure, and psychological problem. You're depressed, you're anxious. That's not good. Or the contrary, in order to maintain your health, you do just the minimum so you don't get fired or dehired, what we call it today. But you don't contribute to the organization. What a pity that you have the potential and they don't know how to use you in a way that you're going to be happy and productive. All right? So this was the beginning of a journey into really, it's very existentialist journey. It happens to you at that time also, when I was a student, I had a small tumor here, and they couldn't decide if it's going to be, because of the stress of passing the exam of the PhD, because it was extremely stressful in Minnesota. I don't want even to start. I don't recommend it. Very stressful. Because this is the American system, very Darwinistic system, where they tell the student, the PhD student, we tell you ahead of time that only 50% of you are going to make it, 50% are not going to make it. So it doesn't depend on your own success. It becomes relative and not absolute. You see, I didn't want to be. So this generated a lot of stress. I had a tumor. They didn't know if it's malignant or not. So they operated me at the Mayo Clinic. They had to operate it. They had to take biopsy. Finally, it was benign, what they call it. It was not cancer, okay? But then I also made an oath to myself that if I come up with this, and I was young, I was 27 years old, at the prime life, just about to finish PhD, and that's what led me to write this small article, very conceptual, and then Hans Selye heard about it, and he said, come and work with me in Montreal. I didn't know anything about Canada. I didn't know anything about Quebec. I finished my PhD. I didn't know even that over there they speak French, which means that this is another opportunity for me to learn French. So I worked with him for 2 years. I wrote my first book, very easy, with him, another medical doctor, that is called, if I translate it, Stress, Work and Health. And here the preface. And at the age of 30, this became my best-selling book because almost 280,000 people read it. Not because they know about me, not because they knew about the other doctor that worked with me, wrote the book, but everyone knew about Hans Selye. He was the big figure. And so when Hans Selye writes the preface, so I entered very early into the publication game. This helped me a lot. I had a very, very a good start, and then it went into what I told you before. So my childhood really was a childhood of learning and understanding of the meaning of what is resilient. What is resilient in personally, what is resilient for when you have a resilient family, a resilient community, a resilient team, resilient organization, resilient society. And today, I even think that we have to start to think about how to make the work resilient, because I'm worried about it. I'm worried about the type of evolution and transformation and the revolution and the technology and what I hate to see at we, the human species, we're going to kill ourselves. This
Yeah.
is the only thing that, so I'll do everything to make sure that this will not happen.
You bring up one point is really important is the word resilient, and thanks for sharing your story of childhood up. And I also believe that a lot of us gonna face with another crisis soon, which is the work crisis, and it's gonna bring them a lot of stress and a lot of like different things for them to keep up with the speed of change of the technology. So much for us to adopt and learn and thrive, right? And so we want to learn from you. You spend years to get yourself known in terms of resilience and understand the meanings of being resilient, what it is, and what is it really resilience to you though?
Well, resilient is
Yeah.
to me like if you think about I don't know if I have it, I sometimes have it. If you have about a tennis ball or about any type of ball, that when you take the ball, if it's made from good material, when you bounce it very strong, it doesn't break, it bounces back.
Oh.
So this is the what I call the metaphor that I'm using to explain resilience. In life, we will have all kind of adversaries
Mm.
to overcome. And what I think for human being resilient means that after you face adversary, you learn to overcome it relatively fast. But when you overcome it, there is only a small scratch
Ah.
that is left, but it's not a wound that will be with you forever, because then you're not resilient. Okay,
Mm.
so it's easier to talk about it than to practice it or to do it. So what is that can help me people to be more resilient? Number one, to understand reality better. And reality is nothing objective. Reality is what they have and what they construed in their head.
Um.
Because if they're convinced that this is the reality, they will start to prepare for it and not wait until things happen and then they're unprepared. So, to make another leap, after I finished Canada, I went to work as a full professor in Spain because I met a Spanish lady and she was unhappy in Canada. She she told me that she will not be resilient in the Canadian winter. So we decided to go back to the Mediterranean. But I always say that ladies are much more intelligent than men. And at that time, I did a lot of research. And I told them, what do you want me to do in Spain? Because in Canada, we had the perception that Spain is a third world country. They don't know anything about research. They don't do research, and said, I will be very miserable. I'll be happy with you, but very miserable. And she was very intelligent. She said, if they don't know, teach them. See what
Wow.
she said. So I went to a very good business school in Barcelona that is the top ranking business school. But in this business school, it was a dessert in terms of research. In other words, there were very good academics that were very gifted, very good in delivering information to students. But because they didn't do research, sometimes the information they delivered was outdated. Because the only way for you to be at the frontiers of whatever you teach is also to do research and to see what is boiling, what is coming, what do people talk about. So this was my task, to develop the culture in this organization so that it's going to be also a culture of research, not to live, not to tell those that do the teaching excellence, but to add another layer. So it took me about 10 years. And today, if you look at this university or this business school, it's one of the, depending which ranking you see. If you look at Wall Street Journal, they tell you it's number 3. If you look at Financial Times, they tell you it's number 7. It doesn't matter. They're the top 20 business school. So it shows you that even in Spain, and this can happen in Vietnam, and this can happen if you have the right ingredients in doing something that I called in my books. I have a book that is called Managing by Values, because this is the time that I've developed the whole thing by value. But in all my books, it's interesting, it's the subtitle that's even more important than the title. So the Managing by Value that I wrote it's a way of how do you undertake culture reengineering in a company. How do you make company to share values? Because value to me doesn't exist. What you have, culture, sorry, doesn't exist. What you have shared values. So sometimes in the same organization, you can find at least a dozen mini values, depending on the leaders and the team and so on. It's complicated. Let's not get into it. But in Managing by Values, the subtitle is called, and by the way, the people that are watching us can validate that everything they say, if it's true or not, because you go to Amazon and you find out what he's saying is really true. It's not something that he's inventing, no? So the subtitle is called Corporate Guide to Living, Being Alive, and Making a Living in the 21st Century. So what I teach people is how to configure a culture that can do it and become more resilient. So you see, it's possible. I'm not just a dreamer. It's true, not all organizations are willing to undertake this process. It's a process. It doesn't happen overnight. It took a Saudi business school, this is the school, well, maybe I should not promote anything, years. So we did it. And I was very happy. So there was a point that they offered me at the university a chair. And the chair, you're a prima donna, you're privileged to teach whatever you feel like, to teach in whatever you want, to research whatever you want. And I enjoyed it, really. But then they asked me, what else do you want? They wanted to please me. They knew that I had some values and said, I like to think about the future. So they helped me establish a chair that was called Future of Work Chair. And over there, I started because I reached the conclusion. This is my conclusion after writing a couple of books and surrounding myself with some future thinker. I reached a conclusion that we as society were not prepared for the new future of work. Not the corporation, not the leader, not the business school, and certainly not people. So we decided to start and prepare them. But how do you prepare people for the future? You talk about the future because we don't know what will happen. But I can give you an example. So I started to write books where I talk about the future of society. In 2018, I wrote a book and it's called Beyond. Business and Beyond. Business and Society in Transformation. What we did, we have identified, like you had 600 wise people in the world. We've identified 50 of them, different places, and we asked them, we're writing a book about the future. Can you please tell us what are the 10 future burning problems of the world in the future, society? Some of them replied, many of them did, because surprise, surprise, some people knew about me, maybe through my books, maybe through my writing, so they collaborated. So we use it to develop a framework. And interesting, in 2018, we talked about things that happened. We talked about the pandemic. Look at the book. We didn't know it's going to be COVID. But when you look at the globalization, you look at the pattern of traveling, you look at the speed of things that happens. I mean, pandemic was almost obvious. We talk about pandemic. We talk about immigration crisis because we cannot afford the world. We talk about the world with no frontiers. Frontiers are becoming something very artificial, in the virtual age and so on and so forth. We talk about the possibility that few peoples with technology, terrorists call them, can cause damage. The concept for war will change, okay? It's not an army against an army. And look what's happening today, okay?
Yeah.
We talk about the possibility of nuclear explosion. And it happened in Japan because of the tsunami, it happened in Chernobyl. So a lot of the things that we talked about are happening, which means that I'm not Nostradamus. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just extending the logic of what I read. I
Ah.
surround myself with people that are thinker. I close my eyes, I meditate, and I think ahead. And many of my ideas really the synthesis happens sometimes when I meditate and sometimes when I dream and
Ah.
sometimes when I sleep. And sleeping is a process also for me to think about the challenges. I don't got a problem. And I'm not at all pessimistic. I am sick and tired listening to people that talk about the end of the world. I'm
Mm.
positive. I like people to think positive, but I like them to drink. So closing the loop that you asked me, when I left the Sade because of age, because I decided that that's it, I want to do other things in my life, I created a foundation, Global Foundation. It's a think tank. The foundation is called Global Future Work Foundation. And what we do, we dedicate the foundation to have, I mean, I had a dream, and I think that even older people like myself are entitled to dream. And
Of
my
course.
dream is to create, like Davos is for the economy. I
Yes.
want to create a place where we have annual summit of people that dream about the future, talk about the future. My angle is future of work because that's what I know more. I don't pretend to know enough about sustainability, about climate issue. No, I think this I leave it to other people. I think work is an important activity that we have been doing for many years, and I think we will be doing it. It is transforming. It's going to be different. Okay, no
Ah.
doubt about it. And I talk about it, about the difference. Uh, one of my books, by the way, that I really talk about it, I collaborated. I have one person in my life that is seducing me to think beyond, I would say, at more macro level, okay? To look at society, not only at organization, X organization, or a sector, or at some people, more at society. His name is Mario. He's a Swiss futurologist that works with me a lot. I have with him half a dozen books I've written. We invited another, paradigm breaker from the US, Rian Eisler, and we wrote a book that is called the Cyberness, the Future Reinvented.
On your
And
back.
yeah, and cyberness, yeah, back because in the back of my, I don't know if you can see, I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
many of my books. I don't have space to house all my books, but cyberness is a new term because when you talk about the future, you have to invent, and I love it. I have to tell you, new terms. You cannot explain future or the future using actual terms. It doesn't make any sense. So cyberness is not cyber age. We explained that cyberness is a positive state of the future. We invented it. Maybe others will invent a new term. So we explain what do we need to do to start to dream and do things that are positive, that prepare us for the future. And by the way, when things happen in the future that didn't happen before, but you dreamed about it, you're by far more prepared and you're by far more resilient when it hits you as a complete surprise.
Beautiful.
So today, I do a lot of research on personal resilience up to some of the my associate future thinker also are teaching me about the physiology of resilience, what happens to our brain during the process. So as I said, I'm an internal student. I have a deal with a European business magazine that is not very prestigious in terms of academia, but it has millions of readers, and I want to reach readers. So I write about half a dozen articles on futuristic themes in this. Uh, they just accepted right now. For example, in January, they published a paper about what are the new challenges for people, for managing people in organizations. What are the challenges in 2024? So I wrote it, In April, they'll publish a paper. I always talk about papers that have been accepted. I'm not talking about things that are in process. They talk about trust, because this year we talk a lot about trust. I work a lot. I've already published it in academic journals. How do you measure trust? What is trust? How do you measure it? And now I'm writing a book about how do you build trust? What is the art and science of building trust? I'm developing some tools that we can use to measure trust, and all this to help people advance in trust. So there is a paper on building trust, and there is a paper that will be published in the summer on a new concept that doesn't exist. And this is about how do you develop an audit of organizational resilience, not personal resilience. And all this stem from our foundation. I'm still fighting. It's not easy, by the way, because at least in Spain, people don't help you with donation to a foundation that doesn't have specific goals, and they're not used to help financially foundations that are think tank. Yes, in North America, they do it. I don't know how it is in Asia. So, but because I'm resilient, I believe in it, I have no choice. In many, many instances, I finance myself the foundation. I hope that, as of this year, I have a plan, something will happen. I'm trying to reach, and maybe if I ever reach, to some people in Asia that believe in it, and I invite these people that also put the money to be part of the foundation and to be part of the people that develop the strategy, the activities of the foundation. For the moment, we are half a dozen people. For your people that are watching us, if they want to see what we're doing, and by the way, everything they're doing is free, so I don't feel like I'm doing marketing. I just provide information. So if they go to globalfutureofwork.com, they can download articles, and we publish at least all the articles in 2 languages. Or if you go to the journal, the magazine that is publishing my articles, since 2013, they were kind enough to have a column under my name, so all the articles could be downloaded, and it's free. I'm telling you, it's called the European Business Review. So if you go to European Review, you put my name, Simon Dolan, so you can get it free. So this is what I'm doing right now. So resilience right now is and let me tell you a little bit about my life philosophy, and this is maybe it's connected to resilience. I think that our life, what we're doing right now, it's not going to be repeated, because even if you interview me another time, it's going to be different. Because the dynamic that's happening right now is a dynamic, and it's going to be freezed and kept in your video. The next time, it's going to be different, because the reality, my reality, your reality has changed.
Yeah.
Why do I say it? Most people, and this is, I can tell you as a fact, do not start to reflect on their life philosophy until there is a crisis. It could become health crisis, romantic crisis, work crisis, any type of crisis. They decide, wow. And this is not the best moment to change. So I look at life as a sandwich. You know, sandwich in Vietnam, they talk about sandwich that you have two pieces of bread, and then you fill it with something that you like, and there are different types. There are hundreds of different types of sandwiches, right, that you can get. And you pick up or you prepare the sandwich that you like. Life, this is like a sandwich, in a sense. We are born against our will. Someone decided we'll come to this world. And we depart against our will. Come a point that we depart. And a lot of the time, and many people think that what happens in between birth and death depends on destiny. To some extent, it depends on them. Now, I'm not saying that destiny we should completely cancel. I'm not saying it because all the people that are watching us that are religious, and religion talks about destiny, religious talks about life after death. That's okay. But what I'm saying is that you can help destiny a little bit, help it a little bit, okay? So if you believe in destiny, you believe in life after death. So that's whatever I do, I want to help people think, and think when they feel that they can meditate, they're healthy. It's not the worst time in their life. It's normal. But when it's normal, we are caught in dynamic that doesn't tell us, hey, 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 stop the brakes. Think about it. Who am I? And most of us, interesting, most of human beings, and I can tell you that apply even to some animals, we are trying to have some meaningfulness in whatever we do in life. Your meaningfulness has to do with what you and your wife have decided to do. My meaningfulness is that, writing books, writing articles, doing the foundation, interesting, nice people that I can learn from. So meaningfulness might be different for them, but this is subconsciously, that's what we're trying to do. And unfortunately, we spend a lot of our time and our life by doing meaningless and non-meaningfulness. And the question is, how do you help people to reflect and to change it? So what I do, and I started this journey 30 years ago or more even, is that first of all, think about your core values, your values. Because if you want to understand why you're doing whatever you're doing, you need to understand your values. Sometimes you're aware of which are your core values and how they're organized, what is the hierarchy. Sometimes you're not aware. So we're going to help you think about it. That's why I've developed tools, I've developed kits, and I've developed a movement in the coaching, the field of coaching. It's called Coaching by Values. After I published a book in 2011, it's called Coaching by Values. And by the way, this book, again, the subtitle is even more important than the title. The title is Coaching by Values, because I thought in the field of coaching is growing, and there is a need in the field to another school of thought. I'm not saying that other school of thought is not good. So I decided to do my research. I talked to the big gurus in all the coaching field, which, by the way, they became my friend, and they convinced me that another school of thought is needed. So I wrote, the Coaching by Values, where I explained the why, the what, the how, the tools, everything is there. In 2011, and it became one of the fastest growing field in the field of coaching, because we work with people. So the coach help people how to become resilient, how to reflect, how to understand the values, how to see to what extent the values are aligned with their definition of success. I mean, there are no secrets in it. Going back to something I started, I didn't finish, which is very typical of me, because I don't think always linearly. And I have a lot of idea. My computer here, I don't know how it works, it has a lot of content and it wants to spit it out, not always in a very nice, fashionable, linear manner, okay? But I do remember.
I enjoy it. Very
at the end, I'm going to connect the dots. So it's called, where is my book? It's the subtitle. Sorry, I turned around because I don't remember. The subtitle is called A Guide to Success in the Life of Business and the Business of Life. Isn't it beautiful? So you ask me what I'm doing. That's what I'm doing. So I wake up in the morning full of energy, and I said, okay, what is the small percentage that I'm going to add to my life so that my life become more meaningful, and to others. Even in the last, I risk a lot, I know, because some of my friends are very utopian, and I'm trying to shy away from utopia, because utopia is something that you cannot reach. I try to talk about concepts that are maybe utopian at one point, but when you define them, when you measure them, when you say how you can reach it, it doesn't become utopia. But anyhow, he convinced me. It's an old friend. Dr. Garcia is a medical doctor that became a psychologist. He's and he talks about the concept of kindness.
Wow.
Kindness, kindness not only to others but also to yourself. I understand it has something to do with the Buddhist tradition. He is not Buddhist, so we published an interesting article about how kindness and practicing kindness also can become part of the process of being resilient.
Wow. I will search for that article. Okay. So
The European Business Review or the Global Future of Work. You can
yes.
download it easily. Okay.
Okay. Got it. Got it. I have one last question for you, Simon, before I let you go on with the afternoon. All right. You are a very big thinker. And I love it in here when I noted here that you say that you develop scenarios to help people to dream, right? Right. And my wife and I, we have been on a quest to help people to think better because we believe that all beautiful change will happen beginning by having the beautiful thinking, the right way of thinking. Okay. And our ability to think these days has been diminishing. So it's not increasing. We have a lot of noises out there. So the best way for us to grow our thinking is to learn, how top thinker like you are doing your way of thinking. So share with us, how have you been growing your ability to think over the years, please?
I have to tell you that I don't have a formula. I can tell you that, but I can tell you some of the key words
Yes.
that come to mind when you think about not just thinking, but I would add creative thinking, because you want to create, not even innovative, because when you innovate something that you can apply. When you create something completely new, it may or may not apply. You don't know what will happen. Okay, so you take a risk when you create. So creative people, I think, are creating a risk that people that read or listen to them will think that they're crazy people. Why? Because I use the metaphor of the pendulum. You know, it's a pendulum when you move it.
Yeah.
So if you create something little, you take a little risk. When you create a lot, look at the movement, it becomes a U, and the distance between sheer creativity and sheer stupidity is very close.
Yeah.
So when you create something new, you think something new, because so creativity needs an interesting combination, I think. Obviously, creative people need to have some competence, because if you just have passion and you have no competence, you will not get too far. But you have competence and you have no passion, you'll be okay, but you'll never be excellent. You never do the leap into excellent. So you need to combine competence, you need to combine it with passion, that you're convinced that someone needs it, you need it, the world needs it, society needs it. And you need to take the risk that people will criticize you. You need to be very courageous. I think courage is very important. And I'll give you 2 or 3 examples of what happened in my life so that you understand also. When I developed my first tool, game, that is teaching people, for people in Asia, I can tell you that we have it also an Asian version, never use it, because we have 7 languages and the tool exists in the 9 languages. Maybe if you can see it, you tell me if Vietnamese is there. I assume it
Yes,
is.
the value of values, right? Okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
It was done in Singapore, by the way, because I tried to have, so when I developed my first kit, and I was professor in very prestigious business school, and I spent a lot of money developing it, my own pocket. And my colleagues that are expert in marketing, are expert in selling, told me, well, it's an interesting concept. Do you have any business plan? And I said, no. What do you mean? Said, who is going to sell it? Said, I don't know. Who is said, I will find people that have 3 characteristics that I require for anyone to become my partner in whatever I do. Number 1, I need to trust them. So trust is the value of values. I don't want to be paranoid. Number 2, they need to be passionate about what they're selling. So if I don't see their eyes blinking and getting wow, they will never be my partner. Only number 3 is the competence. They know how to sell, or they know how to do it, or they know how to illustrate, you know. So I said, no, I will find someone, and they will make more money than I do because I want to help the world. So this was about maybe 20 years ago when I developed it. Today, we have the tools, as I just showed you, in 20 languages, okay?
Wow.
And I have partners that are selling it. I don't know what our partner is doing. I know what my partner in Singapore, but he offered me to translate my tool to the 9 Asiatic languages. And he said, at one point, you'll find partner in Vietnam, in Korea, in Thailand, in the Philippines. He is my partner in Singapore. But in Singapore, you know, he is not using Chinese or Indian, he's using English, you know. But the company that did it, they have offices in many of the Asian countries, so they did it. So this is, and I got criticized, and I didn't know. It took me time to find the kind of partner, and they're doing an amazing job right now. We are very well known, you know, because they have tools. They are developing the school of thought in coaching, not me. I give conferences, you know, but the people that are training coaches, certified coaches, have agreement with the internal coach, it's them. This is one example. Second example, I reached the conclusions that families, they're a little bit at lost because we all want to educate our children, but we are not born educators. We don't know what to do because we have no tools, not because we don't want. So I decided that I'm going to do something that is really out of the box thinking, because I asked myself, what makes me as a child really get excited? And I said, story tales, you know. We go to Disney, and I said, okay, I'm going to write books for children on values. And I wrote the book. And the book, it's called The Magic Carpet and the Island of Values. And it's a story for kids about three kids of the same family, different ages. All the older one, is always busy. The second one, is anyhow. They have their own characteristics, and they have the magic carpet that takes them to different islands. In one island, people only works, and they don't do anything else. And they understand that you cannot only work, because that's not meaningful enough. The second island, people only respect you, adore you, talk to you nice, but don't produce. And then, it's not sustainable. The third island, it's fun. People have fun, they play, playfulness. Also, it's not sustainable. But they understood that for life, and this is based on my triaxial model of values, that you have to have a configuration between some economic values, some social, ethical values, and some passionate value, emotional values, So I talk about it, and it became very well known. So if you put in the internet, and you look at YouTube, the triaxial model of value, that's what I've developed. That's why I talk about in my book. But I also offer, so today, and I was criticized. I said, listen to this old professor. Now he's writing books for children. And he doesn't have his doctorate even in education. It's easy to criticize. But I was courageous enough to write. I said, listen, if they don't like it, let them not read it. Now, this book right now is the process of being translated to about 20 languages. By the way, I think I have a version in Vietnamese, but I have no distributor. I have nobody in Vietnam that is going to distribute and produce it and give it to family. I think I have it in Vietnamese. I'm not sure, but we can follow it up later on. You tell me. I think
Sure.
so. Someone they did it translated, but until I found someone that believes in it, use it, and so on and so forth, it's there. It's sitting there, waiting for someone to pick it up, have big eyes, passion, say, wow, let's do it. And then
If it's not
something will
translated to Vietnamese, I'll be able to help you to do that. I'll be your partner.
happen.
My
Okay.
eyes blinking. Okay.
Okay.
Simon,
Anyhow,
thanks a
so
lot. Yeah.
that's what I want to tell you. So, to think out of the box, you really need to have some competence, not full. Okay. And this I learned from Stephen Jobs. Stephen Jobs, I happened to meet him during my life when I was in Boston. It's a long story, but I can assure you that when Stephen Jobs came to my MBA classes to talk about what Apple is doing, he talked about the computer that they've developed. He didn't even dream at this time to talk about iPhone. This happened later on. So you need to have competence. But he told people that in developing the Mac, they didn't take the engineer that were the most capable engineer in the world. They need to know engineering, because if they didn't have passion, when they showed them the prototype model and the eyes were not bright, and they didn't get excited, they would never work on the project to develop it. So I share with Stephen Jobs the same kind of feeling. Okay, it's a configuration of competence, passion, curiosity, and I would say being courageous. Courageous that people tell you he's crazy. This is not, because that's the only way that you can think out of the box. And I invite leaders to think about it, especially in situations like the world is experiencing right now, war. We have enough arsenal between all the countries in the world to destroy ourselves. No doubt about it. I hope it will never happen. I don't want to finish up with a sad note. Someone needs to be bright enough to come up with a solution that will accommodate, because nobody's going to win. War is not winning.
Nobody wins.
But that's someone that I like to I hope that these kind of people exist in this world.
Yeah. And Simon, thanks a lot. I wish I had more time reserved for the conversation with you. And
wow, hour.
Yeah, the time flies so fast, and then I still have so much I want to hear from you and learn from you. Let's schedule another time to talk about a different topic, and then next time we're gonna dive in the topic of trust, because I really love the works that you are doing, mentioning about trust and using it as the foundation. When we trust one another, we're not gonna do something harmful for the other person. All right, so then we will no worry if everybody is trusting everybody. All right. And Simon, thanks a lot for being so kind to be a transformative agent that help people to transform. And through the works of resilience, through knowing their values, managing their values, through unveiling themselves, right, and getting ahead, getting better, and a lot of works you are doing for future works will mean a lot for the people who are working, and then for the leaders who are making jobs for others, right? So thanks for doing that. And especially thanks for spending your time with us. You are so kind, and I love to see you in person one day.
A big hug, as we say. A big hug.
A big hug. Yeah.
Thank you for interviewing me. Thank you very much, and good luck to you. You're also doing an amazing job. Keep on doing it, and don't get discouraged, please. We need people like you.
Thank you very much for that kind words. Thank you very much. You have a wonderful afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.